morning, Jay. Good morning, Kelly.
Hi,
How's everybody
Tony.
doing?
Very
Fine.
well. Talk to us about your column, putting public safety or the public back in public safety.
So, there's been an interesting number of events going on relating to public safety. Obviously, crime in St. Louis is a big topic. It has been for a few years, and it's a topic that the new mayor, Mayor Cruzen, really put to the forefront when on the first day she forced or created an opportunity for her police chief, Sam Dodson, to resign. And the point of the column was what really spurred it was the situation in University City in which there was a double shooting. 2 babies got shot, and the police didn't even tell anybody until a reporter first at Fox News and later at the Post-Dispatch and other newspapers and media outlets called the police to ask about it, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we had a couple babies shot in a drive-by." They hadn't told anybody, and it struck me that this is one of the things that happens with public safety is that politicians want to use it to create or tell their narrative rather than just sometimes getting out in front of issues and telling the truth. And we had that again this week when there was a tragic situation in which a black police officer in the city of St. Louis was shot by another police officer, in this case a white officer, in a situation in which the white officer clearly made a mistake. The black officer was trying to help catch these 2 robbers that happened to be in his neighborhood, and he got shot. And the original report from the police was, well, it was crossfire. It was a terrible situation and all of that. And then a few hours later, the truth comes out. No, it was just an accident. The police officer, the officers in the area knew that the officer who got shot was a police officer. They had ordered him down with his gun, and he got down, and then they said, "Get up." And one of the officers shot him in the elbow. And so, there's going to be an investigation there. But the fact that it started with the interim police chief telling us something that ultimately wasn't true creates a situation where it looks like, wait a minute, are we just going to tell the truth about what's going on in public safety, or are we trying to tell a narrative to protect ourselves or protect the politicians at the top of the food chain? And my suggestion, particularly as it relates to ongoing situations in the city of St. Louis with the search for the police chief, primary among them, with the state troopers potentially coming in the next couple of weeks and participating in public safety in the city, is let's have some dialogue. Let's be open about it. Let's ask the community what they want. Let's learn from Ferguson by creating the conversation before the bad stuff happens.
Tony Messenger, St. Louis Post-Dispatch columnist, talking about his column, Putting Public Back in Public Safety. We had Rufus Tate on, a lawyer for the Ethical Society of Police Officers, and I had reached out to Rufus because I was receiving texts and emails from people outside of St. Louis and other states who were saying, what's going on with the shooting? All I had heard in the news before that point was a friendly fire accident.
Yeah, and see, that's the problem is once you get the information out there incorrectly, now you create the atmosphere, maybe right, maybe wrong, I don't think we know yet, but you create the atmosphere where it looks like a cover-up. You create the atmosphere where the questions about race are going to be compounded, and that's what's happening now is now you have national media getting into this story, and the story is about race, and the story is about potentially a cover-up, when the story may well have been about one officer made a real bad mistake, and he feels awful, and all of the officers at the event may well believe, hey, there was nothing wrong here other than an officer made a bad mistake, fired his weapon when he shouldn't have. But now we have all of these other things around it, surrounding it, because of the situation that the acting police chief told one story And then not until after the Post-Dispatch reported what the truth of the situation was by talking to a variety of sources who were at the scene, then the story changes. Now the investigation is going to be much more complicated, much more difficult, and the narrative, you can't backtrack once you've told something that it turns out not to be true. And it turns out that they knew pretty quickly by the people on the scene exactly what happened. And that's the part that, you know, I've been reporting on police stuff in some capacity most of my life. And here's the thing, bad stuff happens sometimes. The truth is always better, because once you don't tell the truth right at the beginning, then it's just, you can't ever put that genie back in the bottle. And the other part of this that I think is important that we really should have learned from Ferguson, and we have to continue to be able to learn about here in St. Louis, is, yes, race is a part of this discussion. It has to be a part of this discussion. That doesn't mean that the officer who shot the black officer is racist, but it means that race has to be part of the discussion. Is there implicit bias that we need to train out of ourselves in these situations? What was the training that went into it? What is the atmosphere between black officers and white officers in the police department? All of these things have to be part of the discussion, and making them part of the discussion doesn't mean that you're calling everybody a racist. It means you're recognizing the reality in St. Louis, recognizing the reality in our community, and having a grown-up conversation about it so we can learn from it and improve our relations between police and the communities that they serve.
Tony Messenger, St. Louis Post-Dispatch columnist, thought-provoking ideas and writings as always. Thank you so much for joining us.